Okay, so let's jump right into this. We throw around words like hardworking and lazy all the time, right? But what's really going on beneath the surface? Well, it turns out it's got less to do with how many hours you clock in and way more to do with something much, much deeper.
It's a question a lot of us probably ask ourselves, and the source material we're diving into today makes a really powerful point. The difference is huge, and it all starts with how we think.
You see, the critical difference isn't really about the trophies on the shelf or the accomplishments you can list on a resume. It's all about the internal engine that drives us. It's less about the destination you end up at and more about the mental map you're using to navigate your life.
And this, right here, really gets to the heart of it. As a society, we tend to put a kind of moral value on the effort and the attitude behind someone's work. It's almost like an unspoken language, which is why people with a really strong work ethic could often spot a clashing mindset from a mile away.
So let's start by digging into that internal world. The thoughts and beliefs that really drive our behavior. This is where the foundation for everything, for action or inaction, is actually built.
And here, the contrast just becomes crystal clear. We're not just talking about two slightly different approaches. It's like two totally different realities. One is all about actively chasing growth, while the other is about passively protecting your comfort. One sees effort as the only path to getting better, while the other sees it as a threat, something to be dodged at all costs.
So what does this whole avoidance mindset actually look like in day-to-day life? Well, our source material points to 4 key giveaways, starting with maybe the most common one of all, excuses. They become this shield against accountability and against growth.
So instead of just taking accountability, excuses are a way to try and avoid looking bad. But here's the thing, it usually has the exact opposite effect. It's a way to sidestep responsibility, sure, but when you do that, you're also sidestepping any chance to learn and actually improve. And this really highlights the hidden cost of staying stagnant, doesn't it? By constantly avoiding that feeling of fear or anxiety, you might feel safe in your little bubble, but you're not growing. You're just stuck.
Now this is a crucial point. We're not just talking about simple procrastination here. This can actually be a deep-seated fear of success itself. The "what if I actually make it" can somehow become more terrifying than the certainty of just staying right where you are.
Okay, so we've seen the internal mindset. Now let's look at how that translates into the external world, through our words. Because the way we communicate, it often reveals way more than we think.
And here you can just see this huge disconnect. One person uses communication as a tool to get things done, while the other, they use it as a substitute for getting things done. It's the classic difference between saying, "here's what I'm doing," and "here's what I'm gonna do someday."
These 4 habits are basically giant red flags for anyone who values action over just talk. They're signals that the person's focus isn't really on making progress, it's on managing how they're perceived.
Complaining just becomes this go-to coping mechanism that ironically pushes people away. Who wants to be around that? The negativity feels contagious, and it's all about venting frustration without ever taking a single step to fix the problem.
So, according to psychology professor Marwa Azab, this is a wild psychological trick our brains play on us. When you talk about your big goals, you get a little hit of validation and praise, and that feeling can actually kill your motivation to do the hard work because you already got the reward.
This one is maybe the most direct sign of all, isn't it? That gap between what someone says and what they do. When promises are made over and over but never kept, trust just disappears. It creates this reputation for being unreliable. Think about it. Does this sound familiar in anyone you know?
Okay, finally, let's look at how all of this, the mindset, the communication, comes together in the real world as tangible behavior. Or, a lack of it. This is where the rubber fails to meet the road.
These 3 behaviors are really the ultimate result of everything we've just talked about. They are the visible, undeniable consequences of an internal world that's built on avoiding effort.
Being flaky isn't just a minor inconvenience for your friends. It's a real sign that someone is prioritizing their own immediate comfort over their commitments and their discipline. It basically signals that their word isn't really their bond.
Our source points out that feedback is absolutely essential for growth. But if you're fundamentally unwilling to put in the work, you're going to avoid feedback at all costs. It doesn't feel like a gift, it feels like an attack because it implies that more work is needed. And all of this creates this powerful, self-perpetuating cycle. A cycle of stagnation. If you never take initiative, there's no action to even get feedback on.
Without any feedback, there's no information to learn from. And without learning, there's just zero growth. It's a perfectly closed loop that goes nowhere.
So, after going through all of these traits, what's the big takeaway here? How do we connect all these different dots into one cohesive picture?
And this is really the key insight. You have to see these behaviors not as individual random flaws, but as a connected system. They're all symptoms that stem from that one single perspective on effort and growth, that foundational mindset of avoidance we talked about right at the beginning.
And that leaves us with a final thought. This isn't really about pointing fingers and judging other people. It's about self-awareness. It's about understanding the patterns that might be holding us, or the people around us, back. Because at the end of the day, recognizing the pattern is always the very first step toward choosing a different path.